Tehran made a catastrophic error in judgment on April 18 that may have sealed Iran's fate in the Strait of Hormuz forever. What began as a desperate attempt to intimidate the world through naval aggression has transformed into a global hunting ground where Iranian vessels now find themselves marked for capture in international waters. The Revolutionary Guard's declaration that every ship is a target until the blockade is lifted echoed across radio frequencies for exactly 6 hours before the United States demonstrated that their naval blockade was far from empty rhetoric. When the massive 275-meter Iranian-flagged cargo vessel MV Touska appeared in the Gulf of Oman on April 19th, weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier and carrying a cargo hold full of sanctioned materials, the ship's crew had no idea they were about to become the centerpiece of a live broadcast that would reshape Middle Eastern geopolitics. The Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted Touska as it attempted to break through the naval blockade and reach Iran's port of Bandar Abbas, with radio calls echoing across the water for 6 straight hours commanding the motor vessel to vacate the engine room and prepare to be subjected to disabling fire. The Iranian crew's decision to ignore these warnings and maintain course toward Iranian territorial waters triggered the first shots fired in what CENTCOM would later broadcast second by second as a historic maritime intervention. The USS Spruance's 5-inch Mk-45 gun struck Touska's engine room with surgical precision, disabling the massive ship's propulsion system and leaving it immobilized in international waters, where U.S. Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit swiftly boarded and seized complete control of the vessel and its contents. The scope of this operation extends far beyond a single ship seizure, representing instead the opening move in what the Pentagon has announced as a comprehensive campaign to capture all Iran-linked tankers operating in international waters throughout the coming weeks. Donald Trump's announcement from his Truth Social account that they had blown a giant hole in Touska's engine room while inspecting its cargo moment by moment sent shockwaves through Tehran's leadership, but this dramatic seizure represents merely the tip of an operational iceberg that threatens to strangle Iran's maritime lifelines completely. According to exclusive reporting from the Wall Street Journal, Washington has deployed its most elite naval and special operations units to the region in unprecedented numbers, creating a multi-layered interdiction network that spans from the narrow confines of Hormuz to the open waters of the Arabian Sea and beyond. The force structure reads like a catalog of American military might, with Arleigh Burke-class destroyers serving as the backbone of boarding operations, supported by VBSS teams trained specifically for visit, board, search, and seizure missions against resistant targets. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit operates from the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli, specializing in opposed boarding operations where crews fight back against American forces, while SEAL commandos stand ready for high-threat seizures using MH-60R Seahawk helicopters capable of fast roping onto moving vessels from destroyer decks and amphibious platforms alike. The USS Lewis B. Puller serves as the final escalation threshold, carrying Special Forces and AH-64 Apache attack helicopters specifically deployed for patrol flights against Iran's notorious fast attack craft swarms that have terrorized commercial shipping for decades. The maritime choke point that connects the Persian Gulf to global shipping lanes became a battlefield on the morning of April 18th when approximately 20 commercial vessels frantically altered course toward Oman in absolute panic as Revolutionary Guard forces opened fire on multiple targets without warning or radio challenge. The massive Suez-Max-class Indian tanker Sanmar Herald, carrying 2 million barrels of Iraqi crude oil, had received permission from Tehran to transit the strait with the captain's name listed second on the approved manifest. But as the vessel approached Omani coastal waters, IRGC fast attack craft suddenly emerged and opened direct fire in what maritime analysts described as a completely unprovoked assault. The audio recording that dropped from Sanmar Herald's bridge to tanker tracking services captured the sound of pure maritime nightmare, with crew members screaming coordinates and damage reports while stray bullets struck a nearby container ship and at least 3 commercial vessels took direct hits from Iranian forces. This chaotic morning of violence provided Washington with the justification needed to escalate from economic sanctions to direct military seizure of Iranian assets, transforming the Strait of Hormuz from a contested waterway into what Bloomberg and the New York Post described as a new phase of naval blockade extending far beyond Middle Eastern waters. The timing of Donald Trump's social media post sharing a live performance video of Frank Sinatra's song My Way immediately following the attacks was interpreted by military analysts as a deliberate signal that comprehensive boarding operations against Iranian shipping had officially commenced. The naval and air assets that Washington has concentrated in and around the Strait of Hormuz represent a buildup of density not witnessed in the Persian Gulf for decades, anchored by the world's largest aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford returning to the region via the Red Sea, accompanied by 2 destroyers and carrying a combat-ready air wing of 90 aircraft. The Ford's deployment alongside the USS Abraham Lincoln creates an unprecedented situation where 2 complete aircraft carrier strike groups operate simultaneously in the same basin directly beneath Iran's coastline, supported by destroyers USS Michael Murphy and USS Frankie Peterson Jr. that established forward positions in early April. The air cover for these operations encompasses F-18 Super Hornets and F-35 Sea Lightning II fighters maintaining air superiority from carrier decks, while P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft record every underwater vibration, and MQ-4C Triton unmanned aerial vehicles conduct uninterrupted surveillance patrols lasting hours at a time. KC-135 Stratotanker and KC-46A Pegasus aerial refueling aircraft maintain continuous fuel supply for this entire airborne fleet, with C-17 Globemaster III transport flights to the Middle East reaching historic levels over the past 48 hours. Flight tracking data confirms at least 8 transport aircraft heading to the region while 6 others departed, creating a steady stream of personnel and equipment reinforcement that includes at least 18 F-35A Lightning II fighters transferred from RAF Lakenheath in the United Kingdom to Gulf bases under classified movement orders. The technological backbone of this operation relies heavily on artificial intelligence-supported drone networks that Task Force 59 has deployed throughout Hormuz waters, creating what military analysts describe as a digital fingerprint scanner rather than a traditional naval patrol zone. These AI algorithms simultaneously extract acoustic signatures, thermal imaging profiles, and hull characteristics from every vessel transiting the strait, meaning ships can be identified by the unique sound produced by their propellers even when flying false flags or operating with disabled transponders. Any tanker that turns off its automatic identification system beacon automatically triggers threat protocols the moment it enters a 5-mile radius of monitored shipping lanes, while the acoustic signature database allows American forces to track individual vessels across multiple transits regardless of cosmetic modifications or flag changes. The integration of unmanned surface vessels with machine learning systems has transformed the Persian Gulf into an invisible surveillance network that renders Iranian attempts at maritime deception essentially useless, supporting what Washington describes as a global hunting ground where Iranian-linked shipping faces seizure from the Strait of Malacca to the Arabian Sea. This technological superiority combines with traditional naval power to create an interdiction network spanning 3 aircraft carrier strike groups, 5 different types of jet fighter squadrons, and a comprehensive artificial intelligence overlay operating simultaneously for the first time in Gulf maritime history. The strategic implications of this maritime siege extend far beyond Iran's oil revenue streams, targeting the weapons smuggling networks that have supplied Houthi forces in Yemen and Hezbollah positions in Lebanon for years through the same shipping routes now under American interdiction. Ballistic missile components, drone engines, cruise missile guidance systems, and other military hardware have traditionally moved through Iranian-flagged or Iranian-controlled vessels that Washington now possesses legal authority to board and search in international waters. The severing of these supply lines threatens to collapse Tehran's regional proxy network within months, as Houthi capabilities diminish without Iranian technical support and Hezbollah's advanced weapons stockpiles face depletion without regular resupply shipments from Iranian sources. This represents a strategic multiplier effect that goes far beyond direct economic pressure, potentially suffocating an entire axis of resistance that Iran has spent decades building across the Middle East through maritime logistics networks. The boarding operations concentrate in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea rather than within the narrow strait itself, providing American destroyers with 360-degree fields of fire and total radar superiority while minimizing Iran's opportunities for coastal missile strikes or fast attack craft swarms that could escalate the confrontation beyond maritime interdiction into direct military conflict. Iran's asymmetric response capabilities in the Strait of Hormuz represent equally formidable risks that could transform this maritime standoff into a full-scale regional war despite American technological and numerical superiority throughout the interdiction zone. The Revolutionary Guard Navy has stockpiled over 5,000 naval mines according to open-source intelligence estimates, with magnetic signature-triggered devices capable of inflicting irreversible damage on large warships navigating the narrow 33-kilometer kilometer-wide passage that connects the Persian Gulf to global shipping lanes. Iranian strategy relies on what analysts describe as dirty methods based on unprovoked fire and unpredictable target shifting, utilizing over 180 fast attack craft equipped with guided missiles and rockets that can attack simultaneously from multiple directions using coordinated swarm tactics designed to overload American radar and defense systems. Even though destroyer-mounted phalanx close-in weapon systems can fire 4,500 rounds per minute, engaging 30 different high-speed targets approaching from multiple vectors simultaneously presents mathematical challenges that could overwhelm even the most advanced defensive networks. The Ghadir-class midget submarine fleet of more than 20 vessels can lay torpedo ambushes in shallow coastal waters while evading most sonar detection systems, supported by mobile anti-ship missile batteries positioned along the coastline in mountain passes, cave complexes, and civilian facilities following shoot-and-scoot doctrines that relocate launchers immediately after firing. Iran's expanding drone arsenal featuring Shahed and Mohajer series unmanned aerial vehicles has been specifically tested for swarm attacks against American aircraft carrier strike groups, creating cost exchange ratios where $20,000 Iranian drones require $2 million SM-2 interceptor missiles that could exhaust American defensive ammunition in sustained engagements. The immediate economic consequences of this maritime blockade threaten to trigger what economists describe as a controlled heart attack for Iran's financial system, with approximately 90% of Iranian economic activity dependent on maritime trade and daily oil exports hovering between 1.5 and 2 million barrels flowing primarily through Hormuz to Chinese refineries. Full-capacity blockade implementation could eliminate 80 to 90% of this revenue stream instantly, creating daily losses estimated between $300 and $500 million for an economy that Tehran maintains through defense spending, domestic subsidies, and popular support programs that require constant cash flow to prevent internal instability. Fully loaded tankers now wait indefinitely at Iranian ports including Karg Island, Bandar Abbas, Chabahar, and As-Saloueh, while the Revolutionary Guard Navy's monthly missile production capacity remains far below the weapons load carried by a single American cruiser, exposing the mathematical impossibility of sustained asymmetric warfare against American naval superiority. The military equation reveals Iran's coastal defense strategy was designed for single ambush scenarios rather than prolonged deterrence, but Washington's approach aims to drain Iranian capabilities gradually rather than walking into prepared kill zones where Revolutionary Guard forces maintain tactical advantages. This strategic patience reflects American confidence that time favors the economically superior power capable of maintaining multiple aircraft carrier strike groups indefinitely while Iranian resources diminish under sustained pressure. The diplomatic dimension of this crisis crystallized on April 19 when two U.S. Air Force C-17 Globemaster III heavy transport aircraft landed at Nur Khan Air Base near Islamabad carrying what sources describe as a high-level negotiating team backed by the explicit threat of comprehensive infrastructure destruction throughout Iran. Roads connecting the airport to Islamabad were immediately locked down while the city's premier hotels Serena and Marriott evacuated all guests and suspended new reservations, creating the security perimeter necessary for negotiations that could determine whether this maritime standoff escalates into full-scale regional warfare or produces Iranian capitulation on nuclear enrichment and regional proxy support. Trump's public statement from Truth Social that morning outlined Washington's position with unprecedented clarity, offering what he described as a very fair deal while simultaneously threatening to destroy every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran if Tehran rejects American terms and continues maritime aggression in Hormuz. The equation facing Iranian leadership has been fundamentally altered by the successful seizure of MV Touska and the demonstrated capability to intercept Iranian shipping throughout international waters, forcing a choice between making concessions that reopen Hormuz permanently or watching their remaining fleet face systematic capture in waters they once considered secure. The failure of initial negotiations held in the same city on April 11th created the foundation for this military pressure campaign, but the weight of American naval power now concentrated in the Persian Gulf provides diplomatic leverage that could force Iranian compliance with nuclear restrictions and regional proxy withdrawal that previous sanctions regimes failed to achieve. What began as Iranian attempts to close the Strait of Hormuz has evolved into a comprehensive test of whether economic pressure backed by overwhelming military superiority can reshape Middle Eastern geopolitics without the massive ground invasion that defined previous American interventions in the region, and the outcome of these negotiations may determine not only the future of Persian Gulf shipping but the entire balance of power between Washington and Tehran for the next generation.